Now, most people know me as a landscape photographer, but today, my friend, I'm gonna try a type of photography that I usually avoid. And honestly, that's probably exactly why I need to do it. So let's pack the car and see how it goes. So what I'm gonna try out here today is something that I'm very much not used to, and it's self-portraits. Now, I have tried this 1 or 2 times before in the past, but I've never really showed it to anyone. And now, I'll have to be honest with you, I'm a bit self-conscious about this, because the difference back then, they just laid on my hard drive. Now I'm realizing that I'm like showing this to all of you guys for to watch, judge, and of course smack that like button for me, you know. Now I do have a pretty decent idea. It revolves my Jeep. I'm not just gonna stand there and be like, yo. Now the idea that I had in my head was to use the windows of the car to create a frame within a frame. And I'd been waiting for a sunny day because I wanted them sharp, harsh, contrasty type of thing. Little bit edgy, you know. Also, of course, as you can see, I'm using a tripod here. And then one thing, doing this is well out of my comfort zone, and I'm truly believe that you have to get out of your comfort zone every now and then if you want to grow, or as much as you can, you know, because being always comfortable, it's not going to lead to any growth. It's still, spring might be coming, but there's still pretty deep snow here. Now, the first try, I went with 30mm, and you can already see that the exposure is way off. So I tried again, now at 40mm, and then I noticed these things up here that just looks garbage. Plus, I'm not quite happy with the frame overall. It looks much better in my head. I often do that, and I feel that there is something we can do so much better. All right, so what I'm dealing with right now is that I don't like this tree over there. It doesn't look good in the photo, and also it's a little bit hard with the exposure, because in the car it's really, really dark. And here is really, really bright, but we'll figure it out. I'm gonna move the car a little bit and try again. All right, now the exposure is better, the tree is not right behind me, and here I went with a 24mm look. However, I have to admit that I thought this wide angle look would look much better. Plus, I'm starting to think that maybe the sunglasses is looking a bit dorky. But fear not, my friend, I decided to do some changes to the frame, then I went back and did some more poses, and boom! And as you can see, here I went with black and white, which is actually how I had envisioned this photo to begin with, and the whole reason I wanted super sunny weather to get that hard, edgy, contrasty look. But my friend, I still think that we have it in us to make this photo just a little bit better. So there's a lot of testing right now, running back and forth, trying with glasses, no glasses, different compositions, 24mm, 50mm, and yeah, it's a lot of back and forth. Which resulted in this photo right here, that I'm actually very, very happy with and quite proud of. I think this is a sick photo, and I love the composition and the frame, and then of course I look quite angry. Don't want to smile on a portrait, you know. Also, an interesting thing here is that this was shot on a 24mm, but I ended up cropping the photo quite a lot, and I'm very happy. Now, another thing that you notice is that it is in color. As I said, I wanted a black and white, but when I started to edit this, I ended up giving it this kind of warm vintage vibe that I just thought looked pretty sick. And if you take a look at the before, then you can see that firstly the photo is like severely underexposed and like, oh my god, how much we can retrieve everything with Sony cameras. But also the overall edit, it just looks really nostalgic and nice. But I know what you're thinking, Mr. Icelandic guy, how are you actually taking these photos by yourself? Now, the way that I'm getting these photos is that I'm using my phone as a remote. That is pretty nice, so I can basically see everything, like the composition here. And if you have a Sony camera, this is basically the Sony Creators app. Pretty convenient, and I can compose the image and then just press, you know, photo. One thing that I often like to do though, when I'm photographing photos like this, where I am not kind of the subject and just using a sense of scale for landscape photography, then I place the camera on interval shooting, basically time-lapse mode. And the reason I like that is because then the camera is just constantly taking photos again and again and again, and I can just kind of strike a few poses and eventually something will land natural. Now I'm really just taking a photo, I have it on a 2-second timer, and then I'm posing. Here's another self-portrait I took that I'm pretty happy with. It's not the best portrait that I've ever seen, but what I like about it is that it looks like a actual real photo that somebody took of me and not something that I just had a tripod and take of myself. And just to give you a little sense of how silly this is, then here you can see me run back and forth, and this just looks kind of stupid, you know. So the gear that I'm using is the Sony a7 IV, and then I put on the Sony 24 to 70mm f2.8 Mark II. And Of course, I could have used a Sigma 85mm, own that, but I wanted to have a little bit of versatility. I wanted to have a little bit of versatility so I could do some wide-angle shot as well if I wanted to test that out. Now, just as I was about to pack my car and say like, hey, I've gotten some cool photos, then I noticed this little bench here. And this is a bench that hunters use during the hunting season, for hunting elks and whatnot up here. And I thought to myself, hey, what if I put the camera on very low angle, I pose like the sexy Nordic god that I am, and then I get a wide angle look and just see what happens. And this is the result. And I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not the best work that I've ever done, but it's also not the worst. So the reason I'm playing around with this right now is that I run an online community for photographers called the Darkroom. And we have a bunch of things going on there. For example, weekly hangouts, lectures, workshops. And one thing that is every month is a monthly photo challenge. And this month, it's self-portraits. And I've noticed that this was a little bit of a more challenge than our usual monthly challenges for a lot of photographers in there. However, there have been some incredible submissions this month that got me really inspired to try this out myself. And I thought to myself, why not bring you guys, the wider community, on this journey together with me, and maybe you can try this out as well. If you do, please tag me on Instagram. I love seeing what you guys come up with. But man, this is not as easy as it looks. There's a lot of, as I told you, running back and forth, a lot of figuring out the composition, and you are like the photographer and the model at the same time. And that is one of the hardest parts, especially for us who are so used to being on the other side of the camera. Now, what helps me out is that I'm very used to talking to the camera like this, but still, posing and stuff, that is so straight. I always feel like, we should switch roles. I should take photos of you, you know? I wasn't gonna do it, but since you asked for it, then here are these masterpieces once again. This is just art in its purest form, and I think Louvre, the museum, famous one in Paris, it's gonna be there soon. I'll see you guys there. By the way, if you wanna join the Darkroom and get access to all of my courses, digital products, full access to the community with everything that is inside there, and ton of access to me, giving you feedback on everything that you're looking for, then feel free to apply to join, and there is a link down in the description down below. Now, the first time I got introduced to the term self-portrait is a long time ago by a photographer and a YouTuber named Sorel Amor. She called this advanced selfies, and I thought it was so cool that she's composing and doing everything herself. Then throughout my years of doing photography, I've seen a few people that are really good at this. One of the Darkroom members, Rebecca Berlin, she's really good at this as well. And then a friend of mine, Sandra Hallnoir, she lives in like way up north Sweden, and she's also fantastic. Now, kudos to her, she's doing this in really cold conditions in some super fantasy, you know, outfit, and this looks just so cool. But again, she's just putting it on a tripod, and then she's composing everything, and then she's running in the frame and grabbing a self-portrait. Pretty wicked. But I'm curious, what type of photography are you mostly into? And are you kind of like me, which finds it a little bit strange doing portraits of yourself? Especially if I were going to go like all out, just super artistic on it. I will have to I'll do it maybe a little bit later. If these get a bunch of likes, I'll be like, okay, fuck it. I'll go naked in the water there and just do as artistic as I can. I'm a flower, you know. Also, knowing how to take good photos in boring locations is an essential skill, and that's exactly what I dive down in this video right here.